Most people can name the companies that shape their daily lives: Apple, Coca-Cola, Amazon, Tesla. But almost no one knows the quiet giant sitting above them. A company that didn't exist before 1988, started with just 8 employees, and somehow transformed into the single most powerful force in global finance. Over the years, it slipped into pension funds, stock markets, government rescue plans, and even the software systems other banks depend on. It never advertised, never chased the spotlight, and yet its fingerprints ended up on everything from your retirement savings to the companies dominating world markets. And the strangest part? Almost nobody knows how it got this big, or what it's planning next. So it gets you wondering, how did one company rise from nothing to quietly influence almost every part of the modern economy? And what does that kind of power actually mean for the rest of us? Well, let's uncover it all. The mystery giant. Walk through any major city, and you'll see the names that built the modern world. Microsoft glowing from office towers, Apple stores buzzing with customers, Amazon trucks rushing through traffic. These are the brands everyone recognizes. But the real financial power behind them operates quietly, without billboards, commercials, or public hype. That company is BlackRock, a firm most people never think about, even though their money, their future, and the companies they rely on are deeply connected to it. BlackRock doesn't make phones, films, cars, or software. It does something far more subtle. It manages money, an amount so large it's almost impossible to picture. Trillions of dollars from pension funds, retirement accounts, governments, insurance companies, and everyday investors flow through its systems. And because all that money must be invested somewhere, BlackRock ends up holding small pieces of nearly every major corporation on the planet. Yet despite this reach, most people couldn't tell you who runs it, how it operates, or how it grew so quickly. And this raises a much bigger question. If a company most people have never heard of quietly became one of the most influential forces in modern capitalism, what exactly was happening behind the scenes during its rise? The birth of a monster. Before BlackRock became the financial giant people whisper about today, it started with a mistake, a very expensive one. In the 1980s, Larry Fink was one of Wall Street's rising stars. He ran the mortgage bond desk at First Boston and was known for turning complex financial products into massive profit engines. Then, almost overnight, everything collapsed. A single miscalculation in interest rate risk wiped out $100 million, cost Fink his reputation, and changed the course of his life. Instead of stepping away from finance, he became obsessed with one idea: risk should never blindside anyone again. That obsession turned into BlackRock. In 1988, Fink and a small team of only 8 people launched a tiny department inside Blackstone. Their mission was to create a system that could measure and understand financial risk better than anyone else on Wall Street. No flashy goals, no billion-dollar ambitions, just precision. But something unexpected happened. Clients didn't just want advice. They wanted Fink's team to manage their money for them using that risk-focused approach. And the more money they handled, the more their reputation grew. By 1994, the group had outgrown Blackstone entirely. They split off, kept the name BlackRock, and carried the same mission they started with: discipline, data, and rigorous risk control. What nobody realized at the time was that this quiet, analytical culture, born from failure, would become the foundation of a company that would later influence global markets, national governments, and some of the biggest corporations on Earth. But the rise didn't come from luck, a viral moment, or a single brilliant investment. It came from a machine, a system built quietly in the background long before anyone outside Wall Street knew its name. The secret weapon. That machine is ALADDIN, a platform so influential that some banks, governments, and insurers rely on it more than their own internal systems. ALADDIN began as a simple idea. If BlackRock wanted to avoid the kind of disaster that destroyed Larry Fink's reputation in the 1980s, they needed a tool that could see risks other people couldn't. So they started building software that could analyze portfolios, test them against market shocks, and simulate thousands of financial scenarios in seconds. What started as a small internal tool soon evolved into a sprawling risk management ecosystem. The surprising part? Other institutions noticed. Banks and pension funds asked to use the system. Insurance companies wanted access. Even government agencies saw value in it. ALADDIN became the operating system of modern finance. Today, it monitors trillions of dollars across the global economy, running millions of calculations daily to stress test portfolios and uncover vulnerabilities. For BlackRock, ALADDIN created an advantage no competitor could match. They weren't just managing money. They were managing it with a level of insight, precision, and predictive capability that made investors trust them without hesitation. And for the financial world, relying on ALADDIN meant relying on BlackRock itself. Every institution plugged into the system became indirectly dependent on the company that built it. This is the moment BlackRock shifted from being a fast-growing asset manager to something far more influential. ALADDIN gave them visibility into global markets, data that other firms couldn't access, and a technology moat so deep that even giant banks struggled to compete with it. BlackRock now had the brainpower to scale. All it needed next was the move that would give it reach across the entire stock market. And that opportunity arrived in 2009. The power play. You see, by the late 2000s, BlackRock had the technology, the reputation, and the discipline, but it still wasn't the giant people fear today. That transformation came from one of the most important deals in modern financial history: the 2009 acquisition of Barclays Global Investors, including its fast-growing ETF brand, iShares. To most people, an ETF is just a simple investment tool. But for BlackRock, iShares was the key to something far bigger. ETFs aren't like traditional funds managed by teams of stock-picking analysts. They follow indexes, meaning if the S&P 500 goes up, the ETF goes up. If the index includes Apple, Amazon, or Microsoft, the ETF buys shares of Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft, automatically, predictably, relentlessly. This structure created a tidal wave of money flowing into the same companies year after year. And because BlackRock controlled the largest ETF family in the world, every dollar that entered an iShares fund increased BlackRock's ownership across thousands of corporations, from tech to energy to retail. The timing was perfect. After the 2008 crash, people wanted safer, cheaper, more transparent investments. Index funds and ETFs exploded in popularity. BlackRock didn't just ride the wave, it became the wave. iShares turned them into a gatekeeper for global capital, giving BlackRock influence in almost every major company without making a single phone call or taking any operational control. And as more retirement funds, pension plans, and everyday investors shifted into passive investing, BlackRock's reach grew automatically. They didn't have to chase power. The structure of the financial system handed it to them. Today, iShares alone manages trillions of dollars and remains the engine behind BlackRock's rise to the top of global finance. Once iShares took off, something unusual began happening across the global markets. The quiet takeover. Whenever someone invested in a retirement plan, a pension fund, or a low-cost index ETF, that money had to be placed somewhere. And because index funds simply track the market, they all ended up buying the same large companies. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, JP Morgan, Coca-Cola, Disney, thousands more. And sitting at the center of that flow was BlackRock. ETF and index investors don't choose individual stocks. The system does it for them. So, as trillions poured into passive investing, BlackRock became one of the top shareholders in nearly every major corporation on Earth. Not because it went out and bought these companies piece by piece, but because the modern financial system funnels money through the same indexes, and BlackRock happens to be the biggest manager of those funds. This is why BlackRock regularly appears as a top 3 shareholder in countless global giants. But here's what most people misunderstand. BlackRock doesn't own these companies in the traditional sense. The shares belong to the investors, pension funds, governments, and individuals. BlackRock just manages the assets. Still, management comes with influence, and influence at scale becomes power. With trillions spread across more than 5,000 public companies, BlackRock gained a seat, directly or indirectly, at almost every corporate table. They can vote in shareholder decisions. They can influence boardroom policies. They can push for changes in strategy, governance, or environmental standards. Even if they don't run any of these companies, their presence is impossible to ignore. The world didn't expect this kind of concentration. It didn't happen through mergers, corporate takeovers, or backroom deals. It happened because millions of investors trusted low-cost index funds, and those funds all flowed into a handful of asset managers, with BlackRock leading the pack. Ownership spread across nearly every sector of the global economy. They gained so much influence that it even extends to the government. Shadow government? Interestingly, BlackRock's influence doesn't stop at boardrooms. Over the years, governments have quietly turned to the firm whenever financial markets fall apart or when public institutions need expertise they don't have in-house. And that's where BlackRock's power moves from corporate influence to something much closer to geopolitical weight. The turning point came during the 2008 financial crisis. When the US government needed someone to help unwind toxic assets from failed institutions like Bear Stearns and AIG, they didn't pick a bank. They hired BlackRock. Its risk management tools and the ALADDIN system gave it a clearer view of market danger than federal agencies themselves. Then it happened again. During the COVID-19 market collapse in 2020, the Federal Reserve brought BlackRock back, this time to help manage emergency programs that bought corporate bonds and stabilized the credit markets. A private company was effectively helping run parts of the US financial rescue. Europe did the same. BlackRock has advised the European Central Bank, the Bank of England, and multiple national governments on pension reforms, banking stability, and financial regulation. When crises hit, BlackRock often becomes the quiet architect behind recovery plans. To be clear, BlackRock doesn't set government policy. But when a country hires it to analyze markets, manage debt, or design financial frameworks, the firm gains access few others ever see. It becomes both an advisor and a key observer, positioned at the crossroads where public decisions meet private capital. Critics argue this blurs lines between public power and private influence. Supporters say governments turn to BlackRock because its tools are unmatched and its expertise is deep. Both sides agree on one thing. When national economies shake, BlackRock is now one of the first calls made behind closed doors. But then, as BlackRock grew into the backbone of global finance, critics began asking a simple question. Can any private company be this big without causing problems? The backlash. One of the loudest accusations came from the housing market. Headlines claimed BlackRock was buying all the houses and driving prices through the roof. The truth is more complicated. BlackRock does invest in real estate, but mostly through large commercial projects and rental portfolios, not by scooping up single-family homes in bulk. Still, the idea stuck because it tapped into a deeper fear, a trillion-dollar firm influencing something as personal as where people live. Then came the political wars. BlackRock's voting power on environmental, social, and governance issues put it right in the middle of America's culture battles. Some states accused the company of pushing climate agendas too aggressively. Others claimed it wasn't pushing hard enough. The result? BlackRock found itself attacked from both left and right, each side convinced it had too much influence over corporate behavior. There were also monopoly fears. With BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street collectively managing a massive portion of global index funds, people worried about a future where three firms quietly influence most public companies. Economists began debating whether such concentrated ownership could distort competition or reduce accountability. And behind all of this sits the biggest concern: transparency. When a company manages money for governments, owns large stakes in corporations, and advises public institutions during crises, people naturally wonder how separate those roles truly are. BlackRock insists it simply manages assets and follows client mandates. Critics argue that even passive influence becomes active when you control this much capital. The tension between those two views is now shaping the global conversation around BlackRock's power. So, what happens when a firm this massive keeps growing and the entire world becomes dependent on a system it created? The future. Undeniably, the financial world is changing rapidly. Interest rates shift faster, markets move on algorithms, and countries rely more heavily on private capital to fund infrastructure, energy, and technology. And BlackRock is positioning itself at the center of that future. The firm is expanding into private credit, lending directly to companies when banks pull back. It's moving deeper into infrastructure and renewable energy investments. It's building tools that could allow artificial intelligence to help manage portfolios at global scale. But with growth comes new risks. If too many institutions rely on BlackRock systems, especially ALADDIN, any failure or disruption could ripple across markets. Critics worry that the same concentration seen in ETFs could happen in private markets, giving BlackRock unmatched influence in sectors far beyond public stocks. Regulators have noticed. Some argue BlackRock should be classified as a systemically important financial institution, meaning it would face strict oversight similar to big banks. Others push back, saying BlackRock's business model is fundamentally different and doesn't put its own balance sheet at risk. The debate is far from settled. Meanwhile, governments are becoming more dependent on BlackRock's expertise. When financial crises hit or markets freeze, they often turn to the firm for stabilization plans. If that reliance grows, BlackRock's role could evolve from an advisor to something closer to a permanent fixture in global economic management. The world has never had a company like this before. One that doesn't control products, factories, or resources, but instead shapes the flow of capital itself. And as BlackRock moves deeper into the backbone of modern finance, one question becomes impossible to ignore. At what point does managing the world's wealth turn into shaping its future? And who decides when enough is enough? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this one.